good morning. It is Tuesday, and yes, we are talking about falling forward. Yes, when we fail, we don't fail backwards, we fail forward. Yes, we don't give up when we fail in certain areas of our life, but we continue to press on, to push into that what God has for us, because God has a plan for each and every one of our lives, and the plan that God has for us is not for us to fail, but to find our blessings that are found in Him. Now, as said, Peter is one of my favorite New Testament characters in the Bible, because Peter always knew how to fall forward. Yes, he messed up. Let me tell you, as we go along, we'll look at him and you will find how many times Peter messes up in life, and yet he never gives up. He continues to press on. He continues to push on. He continues to do the work that God had called him to be, and that a fisher of men. We find that one time Jesus sent his disciples ahead of him across the lake. And while crossing the lake, the disciples headed into a storm. And man, let me tell you, on those lakes, if you've ever been on a lake, it's scary to get into a storm, because the waves all of a sudden come from nowhere. And I've been in one of those experiences on a lake when all of a sudden the wind comes up, and man, it's like, wow, how are we going to get out? How are we going to do it? And Jesus, notice this, he comes walking on the water. Can you imagine this in a storm? Now, I want you to note this, because sometimes we fail to understand that there was a storm. They were in a storm, that the waves were all around them, and Jesus comes walking towards them on the water in the midst of the storm. Now, in John chapter 14, verse 28, they became scared, and they looked out and they cried out, and they found out it was Jesus. They thought it was a ghost, but then they realized it was Jesus. And Peter calls to him. Peter calls out to Jesus in John chapter 14, 28. Lord, if it's really you, tell me to come to you walking on the water. Notice this, he's very precise. He says, I want to come to you, but I want to come walking to you on the water if it's really you. Notice this. Peter was really kind of saying, man, I want to experience something here. I want to get to you. I want to be part of what you are doing. And notice what Jesus says. Jesus replies, yes, come. Man, I don't know about you, but I might have been like the rest of the guys in the boat and saying, no ways am I getting out of this boat. That storm out there, I'm not going to put my life at risk. But yeah, Peter puts his very life at risk. If you are familiar with the story, Peter got out of the boat, walked towards Jesus, but for a split second, notice this is what happens in life. For a split second, he now takes his eyes off of Jesus, and what does he do? He begins to see the storm around him, and now he is captivated by the storm. No longer is he looking at Jesus, but now he's looking at the storm. Isn't this what's happening now, even with this pandemic? That somehow we have taken our eyes off of Jesus and we've placed it upon this pandemic, and now the fear of this pandemic has pushed us down. Now all of a sudden we are caught in the midst of the storm, and now we begin to sink. This is what happened in Peter. Peter begins to sink. You see, his fear of what he was doing took hold of him, and he began to sink beneath the waves of the storm. I want to say to you this morning, if you are caught in fear, fear will always pull you down. This is exactly what fear did to Peter. It pulled him down. It pulled him beneath the waves of the storm. You see, Peter, at that moment, fear started to put him down. Peter fell forward. What did he do? He cried out to Jesus. He said, help me, Lord. Now, Jesus didn't leave him to sink, but Jesus reached out. Notice this, the word says that he reached out and he took hold of Peter. Now, Peter fell forward and Jesus took hold of him and helped him back onto the boat in the midst of the storm. Notice that the storm did not subside. They were still in the storm. The only time the storm subsided was when Jesus was in the boat with Peter. Now, we sometimes don't read that. Sometimes we overlook that. Sometimes we don't realize that he didn't get out onto the water in good conditions where it was still. No, he got out of the boat in the storm. You see, while the storm was still raging around him, Jesus called out to Peter. He learned how to fall forward. So this morning, if somehow you're in a storm with things around you and you're saying, God, there is so much happening, there is a storm, I'm in the midst of the storm, I do not know what to do, I want you today to call out to the Lord Jesus Christ. Learn, like Peter, how to fall forward, and Jesus will pick you up and put you back in the boat, and the storm will subside. Notice, Jesus has a plan for your life today. So why not put your faith and your trust in Him?